Kerr quite literally wrote the book on silent clowns. Nobody can come close, except by sheer imitation. My solution is to riff on some of Kerr's thoughts, using a form, the video essay, which wasn't available to him. My only edge is having the films right here to show what I mean. When Buster Keaton made his first visit to a movie set, the mechanics of filmmaking immediately entranced him. With a poor business sense that would plague him forever, he ducked out of a lucrative theatre contract to become second banana to Fatty Arbuckle in a series of short comedies. In these films, we can see Keaton smile and laugh and cry, activities he would banish from his expressive range as soon as he could. But we can also see him watching and learning. Keaton was entering a world of non-stop action, and the special gift he brought to it was stillness. But he also took part in the mayhem, where clowns ran through the streets as fast as the film ran through the camera. It's sometimes claimed that the town Keaton was born in, Pequot, Kansas, was largely swept away by a cyclone, in the best Wizard of Oz tradition, shortly after he entered the world. He and his family, travelling theatricals, had already moved on. But Keaton also told the story, so often that he must have believed it himself, that he was set upon by another twister, or perhaps the same one in different form, when he was only 2. This homicidal weather pattern inhaled him through an upstairs window, wafted him through the air, and then deposited him, unharmed, a few blocks away. What's important is not the truth of this tale, but the fact that Keaton was told it, and believed it, and clearly was affected by it. The idea of the universe acting with almost conscious, somewhat malevolent whimsy upon a largely passive, innocent protagonist is at the heart of his comedy. Though Keaton's worldview remains consistent, and he himself usually looks the same, his character in fact changes from film to film. Often he is desperately stupid, though in the features he is more likely to be naive or a fish out of water. In the general, he is actually a very capable railway engineer, but is made comical because he is forced to deal with situations no railway engineer should be expected to handle, and he isn't perfectly adaptable to these bizarre circumstances. But what is unchanging is this difficulty in working out what the perverse universe expects of him. And of course, the whimsicality of the universe is also dependably undependable. It's one of the things we recognise as fundamentally true about Keaton's work. The universe wants us dead, and sooner or later it's going to get what it wants. Temporarily, along the way, we might get a little of what we want, which qualifies as a happy ending, but the final fade-out is coming and we don't get to come back for a curtain call. Keaton knew this, and it's surprising how many of his films end with death. He wouldn't have considered this black comedy, or realism. He was just using the materials life supplies. The Keaton curve is Walter Kerr's name for those situations where even a dynamic and driven character can lose all agency and become essentially a projectile, a pawn, a falling star. Clever gag writing means Keaton can surprise us, and himself, with where he ends up and how things turn out, but his character isn't responsible for where he's headed. Sometimes, by straining for adaptability, he can take advantage of what's prodded at him by the fickle finger of fate, and sometimes he simply accepts the new situation like one in a dream, who has no choice but to deal with the fact that a street has just become a desert. Useless to try to figure these things out. The Keaton curve treats people as objects, but also moves objects in a mysterious way. They change hands and purpose and value, and play their role in moving us on along our strange, wavering, but inescapable tracks. He saw things that were there. There's a persistent atmosphere of fever dream, nightmare, delirium tremens in Keaton's comedy. In admiring the famous falling house in Steamboat Bill Jr. as an amazing standalone gag and a death-defying piece of staging, we often forget that the moment occurs when Keaton's character is concussed and unable to process what's happening to him. The cyclone that collapses a house later brings to life the props in a ruined theatre, so that Buster finds himself in a hideously animated universe of irrational movement and demonic assault. That's not an uncommon occurrence for him. Kurt Vonnegut attempted to define slapstick with the phrase grotesque situational poetry, which seems to me to fall short only in missing the vital role of laughter as end product. Keaton is happy to stress the grotesque, using whatever convoluted narrative situation presents itself to manufacture bizarre and unsettling incidents, perhaps inspired in many cases by the magic shows he toured with in vaudeville. If criminals are going to Scooby-Doo up a house in order to scare away investigators, they will drag up as ghosts, rig elaborate traps, and stage peculiar stunts of the most elaborate, even impossible nature. More naturalistic threats, such as cops or yeast, will be exaggerated to infinity and beyond. The old catchphrase reductio ad absurdum has it precisely wrong. One does not reduce something to absurdity, one increases it. There's a special aspect of dream logic to Keaton which gives rise to moments of terror, softened by comedic distance into something more palatable, but retaining some of the quality of nightmare. Though Keaton's shorts are an unparalleled period of constant invention, in which he never repeats a single gag, he did develop some of his ideas and repurpose them later. As in the chills of the haunted house, which find fresh expression 3 years later in The Navigator. While Harold Lloyd is the comic most associated with the comedy of peril and anxiety, Keaton stakes a unique claim on the world of the subconscious, the fear of irrational things for their very irrationality. Though Chaplin had greater reason to fear badness, having a mentally ill mother, it was Keaton who time and again showed reality slipping into paranoid absurdity, cause and effect appearing to break down, the barriers between our world and that of theatre, dreams and films disintegrating. He's the Philip K. Dick of Knockabout. Like Chaplin, Keaton was keen on dream sequences and dream movies. Neither man had any formal training in storytelling. While Chaplin had a weakness for it-was-all-a-dream endings, designed largely to get him out of narrative trouble, Keaton was genuinely interested in concocting bizarre and what we would call surreal spectacles and situations. Dreams were a device to make this permissible. It's a truism that Keaton largely shunned the unreal cartoon gags of his shorts when he moved into features and had to sustain more compelling storylines. In shorts, Keaton only needed to divert the audience for 20 minutes, but in features, he felt the need to suspend disbelief. The exception is Sherlock Jr., which is full of mad business, and an extended dream sequence, which occupies most of the film, became the device which allowed him to get away with it. In a two-reeler, no such alibi is necessary, but Buster is nevertheless continually waking up to a new reality, perhaps because he always liked to surprise his audience, double-cross him, as he put it. Chaplin could get away with delivering a perfectly predictable kick up the arse. Keaton always wanted to astonish. Whatever one's preference, his gags are irrefutably the most ingenious of any silent comedians. Keaton is the most silent of the silent clowns. His gags often depend on the absence of sound to make sense. Buster can never explain his way out of a misunderstanding, because he inhabits a world without voices. Like Chaplin, Keaton arrived on screen full-blown, discovering his signature look more or less instantly. Chaplin contrasted baggy pants and a tight jacket, big boots with a neat little hat, ragged clothing with an attempt at dignity. Keaton is more everyday, his outsized flap shoes the main point of exaggeration. The sawn-off pork pie hat seems more or less credible, even as it defies the laws of physics by clinging to his skull. And it was a very useful prop. But the hat was decoration. Keaton could dress as Hamlet or an orangutan and still be recognizable. His figure is distinctive even in extreme long shot. A useful trait for a comedian, helped by his gift for simple, beautiful framing. Keaton was called the Great Stone Face, the Deadpan, or the Hole in the Donut. But he could project any emotion into the lens from any distance and make it legible. He could do joy, albeit a sober, solemn form of joy, without smiling. There's a remarkable moment early on in the documentary Buster Keaton Rides Again. Keaton is seen performing a scene for The Railrodder, one of his last shows. We notice how stylized his movements are, each gesture discreet and measured so as to read clearly as a separate thought. An artificial pantomime constructed with infinite care, as ritualized as commedia dell'arte. Then we see the same shot as it appears in the finished film, and it seems perfectly natural. Keaton was acting for the fiction camera, not for the documentary camera a few feet to its left. Everything he did was focused at his eventual audience with the intensity of a laser. Richard Lester, who directed Keaton in his last movie, credits him with being the first comedian to enlist camera placement as part of the joke. A Keaton composition has a matter-of-factness which greatly suits his character. It never strains for three-dimensionality, and often makes a joke of flatness, arranging items along a plane so they can be exploited clearly in a two-dimensional image. Wes Anderson has made a fetish of this look. Rather than striving to erase the artificial flat rectangle of the screen and trick the eye into perceiving the illusion of depth, Keaton invites us to enjoy his shots for their very shallowness. Like a resident of Flatland, he walks along the bottom of the frame, a wall running parallel to the screen. Uniquely among the silent comedians, even among silent filmmakers generally, Keaton was fascinated by the formal qualities of movies, the unreality or half-reality of the photographed moving image. Objects have no existence, or only an intangible semi-existence, when they are out of shot. They might be noticed approaching, just, or they might be completely imperceptible until they enter camera range. Buster, jumping on a horse, lands on the wrong horse facing the wrong direction. It's easy to see how we are fooled, but less easy to see how he could have been, unless his world is really as flat as it appears to us. Even in Keaton's craziest sequences, there is a kind of realism. Keaton tries not to violate the actuality of what we see, avoiding special effects such as superimpositions, and showing us painfully real stunts recorded at considerable danger to his person. Each shot is a kind of document, presenting real actions performed by real people. Keaton hated fakery, and when he's forced to use a wire to put over an extreme effect, it's always slightly disappointing. Another advantage of the simplicity of Keaton's filming is that the placid, distant camera, resting its chin on its hand as James Agee put it, insists upon the unmediated reality of what we're watching, with the uninflected honesty of a YouTube video. If Keaton had gotten himself killed, the camera would have caught that just as impassively. Comedy is long shot, goes the saying, and it's common to speak of comic distance. Buster on-screen feels no realistic pain, and his distance from the camera grants his gyrations when thrown for a loop or knocked sideways not so much the balletic grace of Chaplin, but a straightforward, robust elegance. Nothing seems decorative. The Playhouse is Keaton's trixiest film. Beginning with a long dream sequence in which double, triple, quadruple exposures, all the way up to nonuple exposures, allow multiple busters to share the screen. This isn't cheating, the way a stuntman or a dummy or reverse motion would be cheating. It's exploring a particular property of the film camera so as to create photoreal images we know can't be real. Anticipating being John Malkovich by almost 80 years, this feedback loop of mirror-image Keaton clones is both one of his greatest technical achievements and his most dreamlike sequence. For the rest of his life, Keaton wished he'd made the whole film consist of this one idea. Keaton's shorts as director aren't just a prelude, starter for the main course of his feature masterpieces. They're the first act in his career as filmmaker, many of them masterpieces in their own right, adding up to an unparalleled body of work, using slapstick as an expression of a deeply felt, coherent, yet poetically elusive worldview. With pratfalls.